You are right, Brian. It is a beautiful day across Wave Country today, and I hope you have some plans to take advantage of that and get outside on this Tuesday. Hello, everyone. Sorry, a bit of a delay here this morning. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good. It's always a computer issue with me, right? Anyway, good to see you guys. Thanks for your patience there. Hope you guys are doing well. Right out of the gate here, since we're into Storm Talk for today's title, just a reminder that coming up in just a few moments, actually in about 15, 20 minutes, the state of Indiana will commence their tornado drill for the entire state. So this is for a chance to review your safety procedures or plans, not only in your home, but also in your place of work, which is obviously good this time of day. And obviously for schools, which a lot of schools in Indiana will be doing their tornado drills as well, coming up here soon. Unlike the one for Kentucky, we do not have a cloudy sky today. So obviously there's no threat of severe weather today. So this should go a lot more with the ease, not worrying about any active weather coming our way for today. In fact, beautiful weather for sure. But again, you'll hear those air raid sirens go off more than likely in your community as we head into about 10:15 this morning. All right, so just kind of a heads up on that. I think you guys are pros at this point, right? All right, let's get right into how this is going to evolve the next few days because it is a bit complex. I'll try not to get too much into the weeds today because a lot of key pieces in the data that I need to fine-tune this forecast for Thursday into Friday, I get tomorrow. So I'll give you at least what we're looking at, what we're debating on, and what is the most likely scenario. And we'll just leave it at that for today. And then we'll revisit it again, come up on Wednesday. Type 1, if that's fair. Type 1, if fair. Type 2, if you don't think that's fair. And let me know what you think I should do. There you go. That's probably dangerous. Okay, beautiful now in Bardstown. Got that blue sky. It was chilly this morning, but not as cold at all as what we had the previous morning. Like Louisville, just now getting into the mid-40s. Took a while to get that thermometer to drop this morning. But the surrounding spots, a lot of you did briefly dip into the 30s for this morning, which, again, chilly, but not too much of an issue. All right, got a lot of ones. All right, I'm flying through these. You'll see your name fly up if you're on social media. I think I got almost everyone. If I skip you, I'm sorry. Because you're going really fast. Okay, so anyway, quiet today. The only issue today that I think is a minor concern is going to be the low humidity today. So if you have any outdoor burning plans, there's not a lot of wind to talk about, but certainly just be careful with any outdoor burning today because we will see the humidity get quite low. Not to the fire danger just about in all areas, but it gets close to that window, bumps right against it, especially as you get in between roughly 2 p.m. to about 5 p.m. That's usually the peak time for the lowest humidity levels, and that looks to be the case for today. But the trade-off is we'll have highs getting close to 70 for this afternoon with dry air and a decent amount of sun. Some high clouds are sneaking in. You see them right there in Southwest Indiana trying to sneak past us, but don't worry. We got their eyes on them. They're not going to get past us. But beautiful. If you got sinus infection issues right now, yeah, the low humidity will bother that. And a lot of that gets triggered by allergies. And, of course, we have the pollen count that's been going up. So today may be a bit of a challenge for some of you. So I'm not sure if you want to be outside if you have allergies. As this dry air could aggravate that. But very quiet. The sun's just not coming up. So we're just now able to see some of the faint images of the higher deck of clouds that are right here into St. Louis and Peoria, into Illinois. Those will be here this afternoon. Not enough of a cloud deck to limit too much on the temperature. So still a very pleasant setup. Just won't be as beautiful of a blue sky like we had yesterday. But as I mentioned, very quiet. So what is going to happen? Well, we've got really two different areas of low pressure moving through the Ohio River Valley as we hit between now and Friday. The first, actually, there's three. There's actually three. The first one's a real baby one that's going to move right across. It's more like a little ripple that'll move from Missouri into Illinois and parts of Indiana about this time tomorrow when I'm talking to you guys. We should have it on the radar. Minor rain chance with that. We get into Thursday evening. Another low pressure will be moving right across Chicago into about, say, Toronto. There will be a chance of thunderstorms near and along and that southern path there we need to watch. And the third and final low will be moving right across mainly Tennessee with a wall of rain, maybe some thunder, but mainly a wall of rain as we head into Friday. All three of these different waves are passing over similar spots overall between I-70 and about I-64 and I-40 even. between now and Friday. So that will start to light up the radar. But because it is a messy setup with different low pressures, that does complicate the parameters as far as looking for anything on the strong or severe side, because it's not clear cut. You get a warm front, you get moisture, warmth. If you get any sunlight, then watch out. They're going to end up with some thunderstorms popping that could be severe. And then you get colder weather on the backside of the cold front. It's not as clear cut. We've been talking about this for a while, how that's set up with this. It's more of an issue if we get warmer air, we get humid, the air does dry out a bit, gets back to humidity levels going back up again as we into Thursday night and do parts of Friday. And then it goes back down again as we into Friday afternoon. So despite the back and forth, there is no significant temperature change that is expected as we head into the upcoming weekend. It really is going to be just moisture levels that will be changing more than anything. And that will be one of the bigger players too, certainly when it comes to strong thunderstorms as we head into Thursday night into Friday. So let me explain first off what the Storm Prediction Center has out. And it's starting today. There was a marginal risk that is really for the little mini low that I talked about that's going to arrive for tomorrow. It has more juice to work with there into Kansas City area, down to about St. Joseph into Missouri. But you get east of that, it just runs out of gas. It doesn't have much to work with at all because our air is dry, as I mentioned, for today. So not a prime environment for that to do very well then. Nonetheless, tomorrow, the severe risk starts to really show up with the main low pressure, the one that's going to be tracking mainly near and north of I-70. That will be the first one that we'll be watching. I really think this is the one, too, that we'll need to monitor for any issues that we'll have in wave country. The southern one right now looks to be far enough south. I just don't see much of an issue at all on severe weather with that, as it will stay mainly, again, near I-40. But that's not tomorrow. That will kick in as we head into Thursday. And that's where we start to see the outlooks show up with a slight risk into just west of Chicago to near St. Louis, all the way down to the Ozarks. The marginal risk has been added all the way for basically I-65 and west into wave country. And again, this outlook goes all the way through the late night hours of Thursday night into about sunrise on Friday. So it's accounting for anything that can develop to the west and move in, or develop in general in our area and pop on the radar, which is also possible. When you break this down a little more specifically, especially when it comes to the severe potential, the Storm Prediction Center has that hatched area out again. Now, remember, we were under that hatched area not too long ago, and we blocked out fairly well in southern Indiana and northern Kentucky. It was all into east central Indiana, into Ohio, where several tornadoes did touch down. And they were not really in the hatched area. We were. So this doesn't always pan out. All right, so I'll make sure I'm clear on that. But it does have the two areas hatched that are mainly lining up near the low pressures, one into the Midwest and one into the Arklatex area to the southwest. Makes sense. That's about where the two lows will be. This is not so much a setup where the wind fields are outstanding. And this is a dangerous setup when it comes to wind field. That's been the case for several of our past systems. We've had a lot of wind energy. We haven't had a whole lot of fuel as far as heating. This is a setup, though, that is going to be highly dependent on the heating aspect because there won't be as much wind shear with it. So it's all about, will the sun get through these clouds or not? And that's part one. The second piece is how much moisture is going to funnel into the Ohio River Valley, because the moisture flow is a bit odd. Sometimes we talk about how it goes straight up 65 right into Kentucky into wave country, right? Anytime we see that, it's never really a good thing, is that usually is a prime feed of the Gulf of Mexico straight into our area. And that's one of the reasons why we have the unique severe weather setup into not only here, but the Mid-South all the way into Dixie Alley, is because of that flow. It's not flowing like that with this setup. Instead, it has a little bit longer of a journey where it moves to Arkansas and then wraps to the northeast toward Cincinnati. So because of that turn that it does, this will put mainly Indiana and perhaps far northern Kentucky in the spot we need to watch for anything strong or perhaps even severe that could get into the storyline. If you're south and east of that, the lack of a deep moisture feed may be your saving grace to really keep things quiet over the Commonwealth. So it's, once again, a view and area divided when it comes to the parameters. Still not as impressive as what they have here. The numbers so far coming in for this area of Illinois into Missouri and parts of Indiana, northern Indiana especially, are impressive enough. Yeah, I absolutely can see why. And this setup is a classic one for Not only damaging wind gusts, but hail really stands out because of the fuel and the heating aspect for this time of the year. Some spots into Missouri and parts of Illinois may even hit into the 80s with the setup. You get into the 80-degree range in March, never good. In our area, especially. We rarely escape that with quiet weather without some type of severe weather element getting involved. So they will face more of that more than we will here locally. Still quite warm. I think we'll be in the 70s, but that's the severe outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Let me show you one of the high-res models, and I'm not saying this is going to be right. I just think this is a guidebook to go by. This afternoon, again, we're fine. No problems. That little mini system, what did I name it yesterday? See if you guys are paying attention. I named this thing yesterday. I'm not sure why I did, but I did. It moves across Missouri early in the day. And again, about this time tomorrow, it will be then approaching I-65. However, the air is still dry here. So it's moving into an environment where it, as far as the thunderstorm goes, it will absolutely hate visiting here. So it will just fall apart and become mainly just elevated showers, basically, as we call that. Moving through the area, and perhaps even some lightning and thunder, but the severe potential is not there with this setup. The only thing that worries me about this, with it moving into the I-65 corridor at around noon tomorrow, is it may mess with our high temperature forecast. Now, we have daylight saving time now, so that does buy us a little bit extra time to work with to recover in the afternoon to bounce up into the 70s. This internal model, the graph model that we have here, does tend to be a little too excited on some of this rainfall. So if this is overdone, then we will likely see a lesser degree of rain showers in the area, and therefore the clouds have a quicker potential to recover and break up and get some more sun in the area, and we could then get into the 70s. But this feature tomorrow, again, near this time, is going to be a catalyst on how tomorrow afternoon plays out. So we'll work on that. Michelle got it. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle, were you the only one watching? Travis, I'm disappointed you didn't get the name. It was squared. Okay, so after it moves on by, that's again the mini feature. I'm not worried about that. But then we get into later Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And that is when the warm front of the Midwest low, the I-70 low, begins to show up. And we've outlined that in that red to yellowish indicator showing the fuel that gets added in. You can clearly see where the warm front is, roughly along and south of 64. It lifts up to about Louisville as we head into 1:30 in the morning Thursday. But notice it didn't build. First off, it's 1:30 in the morning, so you're not going to see it really build in general, but it really didn't build very much the east for this period. So these thunderstorms, if they do form, and it's a big if, will likely be, once again, what we call elevated. You can get some pea-sized hail, some lightning and thunder for sure, but they'll have a tough time forming. So they're going to be very blotchy. I'm not even sure it's going to be able to connect in a solid line. It likely won't, in fact. You may have one or two cells in a dotted fashion that move across Illinois, Indiana, and perhaps even to Louisville in the pre-dawn hours of Thursday. But this is going to be heading northbound. So the warm front passes by. Now we'll start to see the fuel begin to change. While this is happening, the Midwest begins their severe weather fun. And you see it's got multiple cells and lines that it's trying to indicate across portions of Missouri to Illinois Thursday morning right out of the gate. And here's what's interesting. This particular model wants to build enough fuel to allow these thunderstorms to organize into a bit of a line. And it does what we call cold pooling, where if they can organize together, they can push out and become basically their own cold front and move into an environment where we do have highs into the 70s. And we do have enough moisture across, again, southern Indiana. Remember that moisture flow that I drew? It tracks roughly in this area near the river up through Cincinnati. So they do have some potential to feed on this. But this is the only model right now that I have to show you guys that is really indicating that. There's not a lot of high-res data yet that can see Thursday afternoon, but the other ones that are at least hinting to that idea do not have much firing at all Thursday afternoon. They keep everything mainly into the Midwest. So it's a little uneasy. I don't like seeing this wishy-washy kind of setup at all. I don't like being wishy-washy, period. But I do think if you are in southern Indiana, near Louisville and up 71, just be aware there could still be some changes to the outlook on Thursday. If we start to see a signal where storms can indeed fire Thursday afternoon, then that would easily put us into an alert day setup for mainly a period of thunderstorms with large hail more than anything and isolated damaging winds. So I don't feel confident yet that that's going to be the case. So that's why we don't have an alert day yet. We need more data to get into this because this is a very messy setup. There's a lot of little ifs that happen before it that are not a slam dunk. But these marginal type setups, they'll always bother me because you sometimes run into more issues with that than you do on days when we have a higher outlook risk in the hatched areas. So these minor events overall, as far as setup and appearance, are the ones we really need to monitor carefully. So we will do that. After it moves on by, then we deal with the southern low, which will then take over for the Friday time period, and that will move in with showers and storms. This particular model doesn't want to connect the two together. It creates a bit of a gap that forms because of that line of storms that moves into the Ohio River Thursday afternoon. So it creates an environment where it's not as prime for them to form, but we'll see. Here's the outlook from the analogs that we use in the far left, called SIPs there. It does not bring the severe risk to us. It keeps it around St. Louis and south and west. The AI version, the Colorado State learning module, it does indeed have the severe risk into the Ohio Valley, into wave country. It breaks it up. The top left box here is your tornado potential. It does not have that for us, keeps it roughly in the Midwest, due south. Your hail potential, boy, it has a spike. And that spike is very close to where SBC has that hatched area into Missouri and Illinois there. And then your damage and wind potential is fairly expansive, but not as impressive because, again, the wind fields are not as impressive with the system as the other parameters likely will be. So, all right. So where does that leave us? Well, I think at the moment, just stay close to the forecast for Thursday for anything that could form in the afternoon. Otherwise, I think we'll have to wait until the wee hours of Thursday night, Friday morning. And I'm hoping at that point, the idea of it being late at night will take down the fuel. With this system being such a fuel-dependent system, that time period of overnight is a little more sensitive with this one compared to the past few threats we've had. So therefore, that would hopefully tame down that severe risk. So give us some more time to work on the midday data that rolls in today. And then once we have a lot of the higher res, we need a better grid. Not to get overly technical here, but we need a better grid the models can see on the finer details because those details will matter. And we don't have anything other than that to work with right now. So that's the reason why we need that data to be crucial in the forecast. I hope that all made sense. I feel like I just rambled. Okay, good. So after that, what happens? Well, we do cool down somewhat on Saturday, but Sunday into next week, spring, by the way, is the first day coming up on Tuesday, a week from today. And it'll be at night, like 11, I think it's during 11 o'clock news at night on Tuesday. It's still the same setup I mentioned yesterday, a low dropping down from the north, energy trying to form on the Gulf. The question is, will they begin to shake hands? Boy, how many times we talked about that this season, right? So there is still the potential that a low pressure actually would form. If it were to shake hands, it would likely be somewhere in this area around the Smoky Mountains and become not really an app runner, but it would likely become a system that would allow for certainly some mountain snow. Eastern Kentucky, Smokies could get quite interesting there. But even with the idea that they're not quite shaking hands yet, still looks to be enough moisture and cold enough that we'll have to at least mention rain or snow showers for Monday, the last day of winter. How fitting. Don't worry, it's not going to stick. All right. The only way I could see that ever changing is you would have to have a fully phased system here forming in the Carolinas, and then that would be a big wallop of snow. But that's called wish casting, so we don't want to do that. But I will say that the idea of the two trying to phase together is not off the table yet. But we don't have any models that show that fully. There's the UK Met is close. One of the models that's out there is close to doing it. The others are struggling a bit. So confidence is low on early next week on the idea of a phase system and whether or not it's light rain or snow. But the idea that it's going to be colder than normal and perhaps much colder than normal is certainly on the table. I don't know if some areas, especially in Indiana, will get out of the 30s for highs for Monday. Wind chills already showing up for Tuesday morning, the last morning of winter. For next week, already showing up in the teens. It's still a week out, who knows? But still, to see those numbers, it's going to be a little bit of a reality check, guys, because this has got warm air ahead of it, as we're experiencing today, and it's got warm air later next week. But in between, that's where we got some problems with colder weather coming into play. And I hate that because we have so many plants that are blooming right now. We've got the dogwoods are I'm sure your neighborhood as well, beginning to already blossom. You don't want this. You don't want this. This is where you would want snow because that would protect the blooms. But in this case, if it's cold and dry, that could be a bit of a threat to some of the blooms out there. And I feel like we go through this a lot this time of the year, and it always kind of ruins some of the spring color there. But we'll see how it plays out. As I mentioned, after it goes by, we do have a chance to warm back up again, and then the pattern likely will reset. We'll likely see another drop that will happen. I'm thinking about the 24th through the 26th, somewhere in that range. We may see another drop of a colder weather, and we'll see what happens after that. Looking at the GFS and SOMLs, I love this. This is your chances of whatever will fall. Green is rain, and you get into the blue, that'll be snow. Obviously, it's rain and thunderstorms. That's easy, right? There's your dry weather that'll move in for Saturday and part of Sunday. And then here's where it doesn't know. In fact, it has the green and the blue basically lined up together because it's thinking right now it's low chances, but it thinks that snow is just as possible as rain will be for early next week. After that, the outlook is very much up and down all the way through Eclipse Day, which I'll talk more about on that outlook coming up as the week evolves there. All right, so what questions can I try to answer? Travis, the next big cold snap might be after March 24th. It's possible. That's fair. I like that. John, should we get a dry weekend, if it's not as warm? Yeah, I think overall. The only way that light rain would form on Sunday, if there was a little more of a handshake that happens, the light rain would break out sooner on Sunday. If it's a bit delayed or there's a little more of a gap between the two waves, we may get the entire weekend in without any rainfall. So Saturday right now, I don't see much at all happening. You can see that chance dramatically drops there. It's like a cliff dropping there on Saturday. So that's good. So confidence is high on Saturday. Sunday, it's kind of an iffy day. It's a toss-up day. And then certainly for Monday, we'll enter the two systems and see how much moisture they can give us coming our way. So that's where we stand on that for now. Travis, real quick, I'll get your last question in. Do you see the polar vortex? I think you meant attacking us. Some models have that. No, I don't think it's going to be anything significant on that end. And even if it did, it would not be as high of an impact as it is in January. It just makes it miserable when you get cold snaps this late in the season. All right, guys, I got to run because I just realized the time. It's running back fast. So stay with us. I'll have more on this setup for Thursday, especially coming up on midday at 11 a.m. See you then, guys.